Alright, August 17th, 2025, or excuse me, October 17th, 2025. We are on the eve of possibly the largest organized protest in the history of the United States. It is called the No Kings Protest. Now, it is called the largest protest in the United States history by Lisa Gilbert of the co-president of the Public Citizen, a nonprofit advocacy group. There's going to be 2,500 locations throughout the United States where they're going to be protesting against tyranny and against Trump as being a king. But somebody needs to let these people know that we still live in a constitutional republic with a democratically elected representative, and that is Donald Trump. And although I don't agree with all of his policies, he's in no way acting as a tyrant. So what I want to talk about here is the funders, or who are the funders for this No Kings protest. And primarily, you can look at the same people that are funding Antifa and BLM. This would be George Soros, Communist Party of America, the ACLU, the Common Defense Group, the Public Citizen, the 50501 group. These are funders and organizers of this. Now, they're claiming that this is a grassroots type protest when I believe, honestly, that it's completely contrived, that it's based on leftist woke propaganda. And there are plenty more of these groups that are involved in this: the Human Rights Campaign, Indivisible, SCIU, United We Dream, the League of Conservation Voters, Move On, American Federation of Teachers. I could go on. And most of these groups are associated with leftist causes. Not all of them are associated with far left woke causes, but a lot of them certainly are. So I'm assuming there's going to be some moderates in the middle here, but the vast majority of the people that are going to be at these protests are going to be engaging in what they would call civil disobedience, what I would call reckless endangerment, or criminal mischief, or committing assault. I believe that those things are going to happen tomorrow. So I expect riots and I expect mayhem. That's what I'm expecting to see tomorrow. There's going to be plenty of meme ammo for the rest of the foreseeable future anyway. So, on top of this, I think some of these people are just going to be arrested. They're going to be losing their minds. A lot of these people that are advocating for these woke ideologies and going out there to these protests are just spoiled. They act, I don't want to say that they are, I want to say that they act like, and I would say a lot of them most certainly are, spoiled brat little kids that are of a mature age, but not necessarily mature emotionally, mentally. They're unstable, and they've been propagandized, just like I believe the shooter was in the Charlie Kirk assassination there. They've been propagandized to the point to where they believe that extremist intervention is the only thing possible to stop what they believe is violence against them and to take over the country. But the patriotic elements that help to form foundationally the ideas behind that, to form the United States of America, they don't believe in those things. They don't believe in the traditional idea of what America is. They believe in a communist ideology. They believe in a socialist ideology, a Marxist ideology, where you have a small group of people that are going to take over, and they're going to be in charge, and they're going to distribute things equally amongst the population. So again, I could go through all the different ways where this is just functionally not possible. They've ran through tons of studies and tons of scenarios, tons of countries in which this has actually happened in, where they've implemented this ideology and this type of government, and every single time it's collapsed. But the people that are advocating for it, what do they think? They think they're just smarter than everybody else and they're going to make it work. Well, that's just not how human beings work. Human beings need to have a desire to go and do something and be able to excel at it, to be able to use a merit-based system to achieve, to feel like they've accomplished anything. When if you and your neighbor get the exact same thing, no matter how hard you work and how little they work, that's not going to work out in society. But that's the kind of thing that they want. They want equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. And that's what the United States is trying to give everybody. But they believe the system itself is systemically racist, that it's corrupted to its core, so therefore it can no longer be utilized. It has to be completely removed, and they want to install their own leaders, their own government, their own ideology, and they've not been able to do this. Now, this is not of themselves. These ideas did not just come up within these people. This is a top-down thing that has been happening for quite a long time. There are some people out there that have a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time on their hands, and what they want to do is they want to take over this country. And we are really the last vestige between these people and their ultimate goal, which is to take over the world and have a one-world government through the New World Order. And they're going to use the exact same things that these people are protesting against. Authoritarianism, tyranny, fascism. It's the exact same things these people are out there protesting against that they're going to end up receiving in the end, because the people that are behind them, that are actually funding them and organizing them from the very, very top, the Larry Finks, the George Soroses, the BlackRock, they intend on taking everybody over. Okay? That's what they want. They're not there to help those people to implement this system, to create a utopian society. They're there to take everything over. And they're just using the power of these individuals by convincing them that they're victims. And by convincing them that they're victims and that these people above them are advocates for them, they've stolen their power to utilize it for themselves, to take over this country, to take over the world. And be damn sure you know that is exactly what they're intending on doing. And the only thing stopping them is this country and our weapons. The United States citizens. If they can get our guns, you can be sure that the United Nations is going to take over. There will be a new world order. And what is the new world order? The new world order is a technocracy. But fundamentally speaking, the current world order is a bunch of sovereign states that govern themselves. The new world order is going to be one centralized government over all. One ring to rule them all. That's what they want. They want power and authority over everything and everyone. And they're going to use a global carbon tax through this false climate change garbage to fund their government. They're going to implement Agenda 2030. They're going to control and own everything. Their ideology is that you will own nothing, you will have nothing, and you'll be happy. They will own everything, they will control everything, and it's for their own hedonistic desires, and the only thing that is going to be there to serve anyone is for themselves. It's to serve the power. The power serving the power. So the people are going to be utilized to serve the system, to sustain the system. That is going to be the only goal, is to sustain the system. That's all the people are going to be utilized for, is to sustain the system and the current order of power once it happens. Now, the contemporary order of power now, what we have now is decentralized governments throughout the world that are organized within themselves and govern themselves. And they've infiltrated these governments. They've infiltrated their education systems. They've infiltrated the financial system. They've actually taken control of it. It's the banking cartel leaders that truly are above all in this, and the families that control all of that money, and including all of the giant, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the State Streets, that have enough leverage to own and control everything. And once they do that, they don't care if the economy collapses. That's what they want. They want order through chaos. They want to have order from that chaos. They want to disrupt everything, cause it to collapse, and they want to take over. And they're going to use people just like the people at these No Kings protests that are going on tomorrow to do that very thing. That's what they want from us. They want it all. They want to take your rights. They want to take your freedom. They want to take your speech. They want to take your property. They want to take over your kids. They want to take over your families. They want to take over the states, the governments, all of it. They want it all. And they will not stop until they get it. You can be sure that that is exactly what's going to happen. That is what this is really about. These people were out there protesting against what they're really actually going to facilitate. So, they're going to be all over the country tomorrow. Expect the largest ones to be in Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, in New Orleans, Louisiana, Bozeman, Montana. But even in the localities, we're going to have these protests. Expect these protests to be in Zanesville, Ohio, in the local area, Marietta, Ohio, Wheeling, West Virginia, Follinsby, Fairmont, Morgantown. I would expect there's going to be something up at Pittsburgh. And they're telling everybody that there's none organized within 30 minutes of them to go ahead and start one themselves, to gather groups of people and go out there and protest the very thing that they're going to facilitate in the end, which is their own demise, their own destruction. They want to give their rights away, and they're demanding that you do the same. But they're telling you the exact opposite. It would be hilarious and ironic, ironically hilarious, if it wasn't so absolutely freaking insane. But here we are. Here we are. We're way down this road too, guys. They took over the education system long ago. They've already implemented a lot of this stuff. The testing grounds are in China. We've been, I don't want to say we, these groups of people, the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, the Davos Group, the Bilderberg Group, all these people are working semi in unison, some very much so in unison, and all of it, the infrastructure is built through the United Nations. It's already designed on paper. They already have all this infrastructure designed, and they're just ready to implement it. But they can't do it without the system allowing them to. And I'm talking about the system that we really control as a market space, as individuals and individuals in the countries. And we're not going to allow this to happen unless they can convince us that there's an imminent threat. And that's what the climate change agenda is about. To convince the people that there's an imminent threat and that they have to be willing to give up their rights, their property, their sovereignty as individuals to them to prevent this crazy catastrophe from happening. And they've tried it over and over. They tried it with global cooling. They tried it with global warming. None of it worked because the weather changes. The climate changes. Is there climate change? Of course there is. The Earth has constant climate change. The Earth has restructured itself over and over and over again throughout thousands and thousands of years. But that's not caused anthropogenically. It's not caused by human beings. And the real studies say, without data that they've penciled in themselves, the real studies say that we have like 0.01% effect on the environment in that respect. Especially when it comes to the temperature, and that's what they're telling you is going to cause the greatest catastrophe because we're going to melt the ice caps. Excuse me. Klaus Schwab, the former chair and the founder of the World Economic Forum, has been working with China and Xi from 1978, I believe, was when they first got together, and they started implementing all of these social programs over in China. The credit score, what they're going to use is a social credit score so they can be able to take away your money. They're going to be able to track you with everything. There's going to be cameras everywhere, not as if there isn't already. We already film ourselves. We're already able to be tracked through cell phones. That was from the CIA in the 1980s. That was with China. I believe it was Nokia. They developed all these things, and they presented them to you with the idea that you could use them to help better your life, when really all we ended up doing with them is imprisoning ourselves with them. We made our world, what was supposed to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and really it just made it smaller and smaller and smaller. We don't go out and interact with anybody anymore. We don't go out and do the things that we used to. And in the end, they want to separate us completely. The internet gives us this disassociative sense, because you're really not attached to people on the internet like you are when you're acting with them individually. It's just not the same. I was actually watching a video earlier from the class of 1998, before cell phones, and how much fun they were having, talking to each other, interacting with each other. And it just looked like they had so much freedom. And we've already given up so much of it. We've given up so much of it to these devices. You know, we really truly had freedom before, and we thought these things, or at least they were presented to us, and we believed that they were going to make us more free, and they were going to help to better our lives. And really, how much better is it? Is it truly better? I guess it's just how you calculate it. I guess it's just your perspective. I don't truly believe that they are. But I know that in the end, they're going to use AI to enslave the population. Everything is going to be written down in algorithms, and there's not going to be any humanity involved. It's going to be sheer scientific calculation, mathematical calculation as to whether you're going to do this or whether you're going to do that. Judgments are going to be swift, and they're going to be strict. There's not going to be any humanity involved there. Mercy is going to be a thing of the past, because if the only thing that matters is to serve the power, then mercy to the human being, mercy to the individual is pointless. It will not exist. I'm telling you. They're going to use this group of people and these people that believe this ideology to oppress the other side into attrition. Because we're not just going to give it away. What they're going to do is they're just going to wear us down and wear us down, and this is their plan. Now, they're going to come to a certain point. There's going to be people that take a stand, and they're not going to be willing to capitulate. They're just going to say that you're not going to cut our kids' genitals off. You're not going to teach my 5-year-old how to touch themselves, okay, in school, and have 4th and 5th graders reading books about gay sex. This is insane. That's what we're doing. You get magazines like over there in Europe that are talking about how mild pedophilia, Richard Dawkins, an atheist, comes out and said mild pedophilia is okay. You don't believe me? Look it up. He loves evolution and Darwinism, because if we're just animals, what makes the difference? Okay, they want God out of the equation because God gets in the way of their agenda. They want to be God. They have to be God. They have to be God. Just like Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, and over there in Japan, where they have this godless nation, over there in China, where the government and the state is God, because the only thing that matters is to serve them. The individual, we have the individual freedoms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness here. That is going to go away. It's not going to exist anymore. And that includes with the individual, the family, the community. None of that stuff is going to matter. Everyone is going to live to serve society. And when I say society, I don't really mean society. They're going to live to serve the people at the top of the food chain. The ones that took everything over. And these people that are doing this No Kings protest, they don't understand it. They don't. I don't believe that they did. I don't believe that they ever did. But they are serving the power, and they're going to facilitate this through the riots and the chaos that they need, those people that are above them, that they need, so that they can utilize a war within the people, a civil war, so that they can come in with the moral high ground and take everything over. And when I say the United States is the last vestige, they've already taken the guns from almost every other country in the world. They don't have them. If they can get ours, it's just going to be like over in Britain and Australia. They take their guns, now they're getting put in jail for thought crimes and speaking. They're already trying to do it here piecemeal, piece by piece by piece, taking away your free speech, creating hate crimes for speech. I don't care who it is and what they're saying. As long as it's not a call to action, then they should be able to say it. As long as it's not a call to kill and assault people that don't deserve it. Now, if you want to say that there's a person that's been convicted of a crime and the punishment should be death, then you should have the right to say that. But you want to go around saying that these people need to be murdered for things that aren't even crimes? That is illegal. But hate crimes, just by saying that I don't like you, who is defining hate? Who is defining a hate crime? If the people defining hate crime just don't like you, well, they can put you in jail for whatever you say, because they can just define whatever you say as hate speech. You cannot do these things. And when they start putting people in jail, this is one thing I don't like about what Trump did. Now, I understand why people want to protect the American flag, but if someone wants to burn their own property, they do not deserve to be put in jail for it, regardless of what you think that thing means. Because if they can do that to you, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to start being able to put you in jail for things that you say just because they don't like what you say as an opinion. I promise you, these things come to follow. And I don't believe Trump is going to do that, but he's not the end-all, be-all here. He's not the last president of the United States. He could be. He could be. But as far as it goes right now, he's not going to be. There's going to be another election. And even if we have a conservative regime, there's still going to be pieces taken away, piece by piece by piece, as long as we're willing to compromise with the devil. Because he wants it all. Because in the end, there's going to be people in charge at the top. But don't forget, spiritually speaking, Satan is behind all that. He is the God of this world. And I assure you, he wants the new world order to exist. He wants that one world government because he's going to be the one that's in charge of it. And if you know anything about Satan, he's not for human rights. I assure you. He says that he is. He wants you to pretend to be your own God. That's how he tricked Eve in the Garden of Eden. Ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. You wouldn't be able to decide for yourself what's right and wrong. Well, when people decide for themselves what's right and wrong, without an objective standard, what happens is we just end up killing each other. Because although we may compromise and compromise and compromise so that we can live together in this faux peace, in the end, we're going to war. And you can look over in the Ukraine right now, and what do we see going on? Russia was promised repeatedly from 1990, when the Berlin Wall came down. They were promised NATO would not move any further closer to them. And guess what? Piece by piece by piece, we're doing it. That's what we do. When evil gets into power, it doesn't necessarily have to be all evil. There is a control mechanism that is controlled. This thing is controlled by evil. The center is going to be evil. Even though we may want to think it's for good, and God can work for good in this world, Satan is for evil. He's for himself only. He wants power. He wants control. And if he can get you to think the same way that he does, he's getting exactly what he wants. Because as long as we get God out of the way, he can manipulate everybody. Because I'm going to tell you what, Satan is smarter than every single man on this planet. If we're talking about secular knowledge, he's smarter. It says, resist Satan and he will flee from you. And you resist him in sin, and you resist him through God, you resist him through the Holy Spirit. But in truth, excuse me, I've been sick for several days. One of the reasons I haven't been doing these podcasts. But in truth, that we're not, there are enough reprobates on this planet that are fully contracted to him, that are at very, very, very strategic positions in this world government and in the governments throughout the world, that it's going to eventually take over. And we're allowing it to happen by murdering babies and going out there and committing violence throughout the entire planet, killing each other. But we allow propaganda to take over our minds and convince us to do things that are rationally insane. Then we're doing exactly what he wants. And we're leading right into that. We're leading right into that one world government. And if you want to look at world war like I'm talking about over here right now, the people that are leading these countries, you know, there may be people that run the countries that are good leaders at some points. But when you get the evil to take over, they start breaking truths. And even people that we consider to be good leaders still strategically go out there and lie. It happens. People that you think are good will strategically go out there and lie. They should not do that. But they think, I can't tell that other person the truth because they're going to use it to manipulate me. But you always do the right thing. You can't control everybody else. You can only control yourself. That's it. You can only control you. I can't control those people. Nobody can control those people. The other way we're actually going to take this country back is to fundamentally go back to God, take back over the education system primarily. That has to be done. How they got all this done was by taking over the education system, Rockefellers in the 1930s. Once that started to happen, and the school education board, vast majority of it, paid for, I believe it was, by the Rockefeller Foundation, and facilitated through these high prestigious institutions like Harvard. But once they took over the education system and started implementing their liberal woke agenda, it was all over with. It took generations because as a society, we wouldn't put up with that garbage right away. And again, like I said, who's in charge? Satan. And he don't jerk the wheel. He understands what it takes to get us where he wants us to go. So it's a slow process. And the reason Charlie Kirk was killed was because of the people that he was reaching. The 18 to 29-year-old group. The ones that are immediately going to be taken over in these governments around the world and within our government, within our institutions here in the United States. And he was reaching them by the millions. Turning them conservative. Bringing them back to a capitalistic viewpoint. And understanding not just the demand side of economics, but the supply side and how colleges are meant to manipulate you to become a slave to the true owners, the ones that are running the corporate businesses, the corporatocracy, the technocracy, the banking cartels. And they've already infiltrated the government. So we have to take all these things back from them. And that is a slow process. And I think that they're so far along in this that they're not going to be willing to give these positions back up. I believe that, honestly. I don't think we're too far from a world war because they're not above killing their own people with a false flag to cause massive riots and insurrection in the country. They did it over in the Ukraine. They took over the Ukraine. What did they do? They had people on both sides of that shot at each other. They had people on both sides that were shooting at each other intentionally just to start that war so that they could take over, I believe it was a CIA operation to take over the Ukraine. Gee, it's not like it's not been done in any other country in the world. I don't know, Libya, a bunch of other countries in Africa, go figure. But to get these people out of these institutions that are within the United States government, we're going to have to do that slowly. But if we don't start making a move now and start spreading this now and to go out there and to start working on this now, every single person needs to do this. Because the more people that we are complacent, the further and further we're moving down the road the other direction. What was it? Thomas Jefferson said, all it takes for tyranny to succeed is for evil or for good men to do nothing. And I know that's not a biblical thing, but the idea is, the concept is still true. If good men do nothing, tyranny will take over. And how much tyranny will a country, how much tyranny can happen in a country? As much as you're willing to accept. So if you're willing to accept this tyranny, if you're willing to accept this one world government, and the social credit score and the implementation of a crypto that's run by the central banking cartel, that's going to rule your life, and they'll just turn your bank account off if they don't like what you're saying, well, then you just sit there and do nothing. Think nothing, do nothing, don't tell anybody about anything, and don't pay attention to what's going on. Just do that, because it's going to happen if that's what happens. But if we as individuals, and we as communities, we as families, okay, we go out there and we stand up for the rights of ourselves that were given to us by God. The Constitution does not grant rights. It establishes that we have rights that are unable to be taken from us because they were not given to us by man but by God. The highest law in this land is the Constitution. It is not the government. It is not the government. The highest authority in this land is the Constitution. And above that is God. But He's over all. But we as individual citizens of this country have the Constitution backing up everything because it establishes that we have them, but we are the protectors of it. We have freedom of speech. We have the First Amendment because we can back it up with the Second Amendment. And it goes back to the very same thing I talked about before. We can never give up our weapons. Never. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Because it's not just a foreign terroristic a foreign terroristic take us over. Because the vast majority of the time, it's going to be an insurrection. It's going to be from within us. The government is going to be the one to become tyrannical, and it's going to want to take the rights of the people. So, read up on this. I'm going to do some more live broadcasts because these points need hit, and it needs broke down, and it needs explained in a way that people can functionally, to understand how you can function in society to do something about this. But just by word of mouth, you're doing something. Talk about it. Get talking about it with your friends. Get talking about it with your neighbors. Okay? Because at least if people are talking about it, the people are thinking about it. If they're thinking about it, they can think of ideas of how to stop it. But I'm telling you that we can vote people out. We can get these people that are on the school boards that are in there allowing this to happen, get them out. And that goes for everywhere in the country, not just here locally. I don't think it's nearly as bad here, but you go out in Colorado, and I believe I think it was down in Kentucky, they were teaching kids about touching themselves as a part of the curriculum. But like, how does that make any sense? I don't think anybody needs to be taught how to do that, but you certainly ain't going to be doing it in schools, because the only people that do that kind of stuff are pedophiles. Pedophiles do that, because no one else is thinking about that. Why would you be? But here they are, trying to introduce it to your children. Okay? And I believe a lot of what was said by, I think it's Charlie Kirk or either Matt Walsh, if you're an adult and you have gender dysphoria, which is what the DM used to call it, the gender confusion, you have a mental illness, okay? If you're an 8-year-old and you have gender confusion, it's because your parents have a mental illness. These people are abusing their children by doing this to them. And it's happening all across the country. And we just let it go. We just don't say anything about it, because we can't offend people. Look, we're all sinners, okay? We all have our own problems. But that doesn't mean we just let the neighbor get murdered or, rape exist and not say anything about it. Our children get molested. Our children be mentally and physically abused by people and not say anything or do anything about it. But the people that are doing this protest tomorrow, there's going to be a bunch of them that advocate this very thing. And they're helping to facilitate this one world government and this new world order that's going to allow it to happen. You can bet on it. Take it to the bank. I think I went on a tirade here and a rant that needed to be said. And I hope that people hear this and they think about it and they know they have to do something. Now, you cannot control anyone else, but you can control yourself. You can control yourself. You can decide what you're going to do. So do something. Because if you don't, who is? Have a good night.